Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm Katie. Hi. I'm Katie Sewell. I'm Town Hall's program director. Thank you so much for coming to this evening's event with Lindy West. We're bringing her to you in partnership with the University Bookstore, who's over here. Part of the Arts and Culture series, which is possible with support from the National Endowment for the Arts, the Seattle Office of Arts and Culture, for Culture, and the Arts Fund. And to all of you Town Hall members who are here, you guys are the reason why it only cost everyone $5 to get into this room. So, this very packed room. So if you are not a member and you love $5 ticket prices, consider it. And I might point out, some of you may have noticed that we have some people standing along the wall over here who have nowhere to sit. So if you feel like you have a seat next to you that's untaken, can you raise your hand and let them come find their way? Wow, there's a lot. If you do end up staying standing, stay by the window, though. Oh, look, this is great. Okay. Here we thought we couldn't fit everyone in. All right, so I'm going to keep talking while we figure that out. So after the event, Lindy is going to stick around, and this is important. This is important. If you want her to sign a copy of your book, she's going to be in the north lobby over there. So I would suggest exiting through that exit. If you don't want to stick around to have her sign a book, you can come down here, buy a book, and exit through that side over there. And finally, just to mention two upcoming events for you that you might be interested in. June 12th, leading futurist Kevin Kelly, who's the founding executive editor of Wired, is going to be here explaining how much of what is going to happen in the next 3 decades is now inevitable, driven by technological trends that are already in motion. And after he tells us all that, he's going to tell us what we should be doing to plan for the future, given that fact. And then on June 23rd, author Scotty Madden and her wife join local DJ Status Apparatus Kazi to provide an unflinching and personal look at the transgender experience and the way that their marriage has changed and grown over the last 25 years. And now, without further ado, let me introduce our guest for the evening, Seattle-based Lindy West. She's a writer, editor, and performer whose work focuses on pop culture, social justice, humor, and body image. Currently a culture writer for GQ and a weekly columnist for The Guardian, Lindy is also the founder and editor of an advice blog for teens called I Believe You, It's Not Your Fault. In 2015, she wrote and recorded a story for This American Life about confronting an internet troll who impersonated her dead father 2 years earlier. As a result, Lindy was listed as one of the internet's most fascinating of 2015 by Cosmopolitan.com. Right? She also helped launch the viral hashtag #ShoutYourAbortion in defense of women. Wow. And of course, we know why we're here tonight. She joins us to discuss her story and her new book, Shrill, Notes from a Loud Woman. Please join me in welcoming Lindy West.
Hi. Sorry if that was gross that I came out with my phone, but this is the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me. There's so many of you. I'm going to, in fact, now also take a picture of you because I have to remember that this happened. Like, I need proof. Okay. So, like, there's, okay. Hi. Okay, enough of that. That's goofy. Okay, so, wow. You know, when I was leaving my house to come here, I said to my husband, I'm a little nervous. You know, my other readings, because I'm sort of halfway through this tour, and my other readings have been like, 30, 40, 50 people, and I said, this is going to be like 800 people, and he was like, 700, it's fine. And then we got here, and they were like, oh no, it's 1,200. It's like, they're like, yeah, which is, I'm pretty sure that's the most number of people. That's the highest number of people that has ever existed. So anyway, I don't really know how to express my gratitude to all of you for being here, but it's unbelievably moving, and I'm gonna ramble for a minute, and then I'm gonna read for a little bit, and then we're gonna talk as friends, and then we're gonna sign books. So does that sound like a good plan? All right. So I started this book about a year ago, and it was a really long, difficult, scary, solitary process because I didn't know if I knew how to write a book. I mean, I knew that I didn't know how to write a book because, the longest thing I'd written before that was maybe 5,000 words, probably more like 2,000. And a book, FYI, is 80,000, which is a lot of words. And they just sort of turn you loose, and they say, okay, send us a book later, which is scary. And so I ended up just spending a lot of time alone in my house and in other people's houses that they kindly let me use. I went to a cabin in Maine, and I was very alone for about a month with only the family of bats living in the wall to keep me company, which when you're already afraid of ghosts, it's not fun. They're not good friends, actually, good companions at all, because because they're in the wall, and then they make just imagine the worst noise and then double it, and that's the noise that a bat in the wall makes behind your head when you're sleeping in a 200-year-old farmhouse in Maine in the middle of nowhere. So, but it was an amazing experience in its own way, and it was beautiful, and I wrote a lot of good book there, so that was good. But yeah, so this is a memoir, which means it's a bunch of stuff from my life. And when you're just writing a bunch of stuff from your life alone in a bat-haunted cabin in Maine, you kind of forget that someday 1,200 people are going to read it. 1,200 people, hopefully minimum, and hopefully more than that. And now I'm sort of reckoning with that I made this thing, and it's very, very vulnerable and very personal in a way that I don't usually write. And now I send it out into the world, and a bunch of strangers read it and then form an opinion on it, which is weird, because it's like your innermost secrets and most traumatizing, embarrassing moments turned into a book for strangers to judge. So I've just been so amazed and honored by the response, which has been tremendously kind, and I don't know how it happened, but seems like people across the board have found things that they can relate to in this book, and I just feel so grateful to get to do this work, and I feel really grateful that my publisher let me write this weird book, which is full of butts and periods and gross things that if you read the Amazon reviews are very vulgar and people did not want to know about, apparently. But Hachette, my publisher, not only let me write it and put it out into the world, they let me present it, just as a piece of literature, which is the way that the minutia of men's lives gets presented as literature. And I think that it really means a lot to me that I get to bring this to you not as a niche publication, but as a book. It's a piece of literature, and it's not it's about women's lives, because it's about my life specifically, FYI, in case you just wandered in. And I think that's really tremendously important. I think I wrote it about myself and hopefully to connect with other women and make other women feel less alone, but also as an entertaining piece of, media for, media is such a horrible jargony, never mind. It's some content that I created. I think it's a funny book, it's a funny story, and I hope that all people can read it and find something to hang on to, because I really think that I have spent a lot of my life learning about the day-to-day lived experiences of men through literature, and it's been great. But I would love to start having that be a little bit more reciprocal in terms of what we think of as literature and what we incorporate into the canon, and because that's where empathy comes from. And I really, one of my express goals, and this is in the book proposal from a million years ago, is to create a really compelling, funny, engaging, humanized portrait of one funny, feminist, fat woman, because a lot of people don't think that they like loud, funny, feminist, fat women. They don't like it at all. But of course, that's silly, because I'm great, and you should like me. So, you guys, you shouldn't let me manipulate you like that. I'm embarrassed by that. Okay. So I'm gonna actually just read you the first chapter, which I wrote kind of later on in the process, and didn't really realize until I started doing this tour and started doing interviews about the book that it's kind of the mission of the book. This is about growing up and not seeing myself represented in media and not having characters on TV and in the movies that I felt I could relate to and that reflected myself back to me. And so it's about that and how that affected my life, and a list of what was available to me, which is slim and not great. And so it not only critiques that idea, but I hope that the book itself is that, becomes that thing that was missing for me. I hope to be something that younger women can look to as, I don't want to say as a role model, but, at least, like, I exist, and I'm a human being, and here I am. I wish that I just wrote something that I could have used 15 or 20 years ago. So, are you guys ready? Okay. So weird to read your book out loud in front of 1,200 people. I love you guys, though, so much. Okay. Why is "what do you want to be when you grow up" the go-to small talk we make with children? Hello, child. As I have run out of compliments to pay you on your doodling, can you tell me what sort of niche you plan to carve out for yourself in the howling existential morass of uncertainty known as the future? Also, has anyone given you a heads up that everyone you love will die someday? That's like waking a dog up with an air horn and telling it that it's president now. I don't know, Uncle Jeff. I'm still kind of working on figuring out how to handle these weird popsicles with the 2 sticks. It's a horrible popsicle design, by the way. Do they still make those where you have to break the popsicle in half? Abolish it. That actually, I've changed the main message of the book. That's now my main message. There was a time when I was very small that I had a ready response to the question. The answer was ballerina, or for a minute, veterinarian, as I had been erroneously led to believe that veterinarian was the grown-up term for professional animal petter. I would later learn, crestfallen and appalled, that it's more a term for touching poo all the time, featuring intermittent cat murder. So the plan was abandoned. The fact that any kid wants to be a veterinarian is bananas, by the way. Whoever does veterinary medicine's PR among preschool-aged children should be working in the fucking White House. That period, when I was wholly myself, effortlessly certain, my identity still undistorted by the magnetic fields of culture, was so long ago that it's beyond readily accessible memory. I do not recall being that person. For as long as I can recall, anytime I met a new adult who would inevitably get nervous, because what is a child and how do you talk to it, and fumble for that same hacky stock question, my imagination would come up empty. Doctor? Too gross. Fireman? Too hard. Princess? Those are fictional, right? Astronaut? LOL. While we're interrogating childhood cliches, who decided that astronaut would be a great dream job for a kid? It's like 97% math, 1% breathing some Russian dude's farts, 1% dying, and 1% eating awesome powdered ice cream. If you're the very luckiest kind of astronaut ever, your big payoff is that you get to visit a barren, airless wasteland for 5 minutes, do some more math, and then go home. Ice cream not even guaranteed. Anyway, loophole, I can already buy astronaut ice cream at the Science Center. No math or dying required. Lindy 1, astronauts, nada. Not that it mattered anyway. Astronaut was never on the table. Good luck convincing a fat kid that they should pursue a career in floating. Thanks to a glut of cultural messaging, I knew very clearly what I was not. Small, thin, pretty, girlish, normal, weightless, Winona Ryder. But there was precious little media telling me what I was, what I could be. For me, what do you want to be when you grow up was subsumed by a far more pressing question. What are you? As a kid, I never saw anyone remotely like myself on TV, or in the movies, or in video games, or at the children's theater, or in books, or anywhere at all in my field of vision. There simply were no young, funny, capable, strong, good, fat girls. A fat man can be Tony Soprano. He can be Dan from Roseanne, still my #1 celeb crush. He can be John Candy, funny without being a human sight gag. But fat women were sexless mothers, pathetic punchlines, or gruesome villains. Don't believe me? It's cool, I wrote it down. Here is a complete list of fat female role models available in my youth. Lady Cluck. Lady Cluck was a loud, fat chicken woman who took care of Maid Marian in Disney's Robin Hood. Lady Cluck was so fat, in fact, that she was nearly the size of an adult male bear. Like, okay. I mean, you guys can picture her next to Baloo, right? You know that a chicken is not the size of a bear, okay? I'm just saying there's some zoological inaccuracies in that movie. Being a 400-pound chicken, she wasn't afraid to throw down sorry. This is gonna take a year to get through this chapter if I keep laughing at my own jokes. Being a 400-pound chicken, she wasn't, and that's a conservative estimate. I looked up bear weights. That's like if he's like the smallest kind of bear. Actually, you know what I did is I looked up what kind of bear it likely was in the Jungle Book, which is where Baloo came from. I know that, we'll get to this in a minute. I know that Baloo is not Little John, it's fine, but he is. Anyway, it's a sloth bear, which weigh about 400 pounds. Okay. Being a 400-pound chicken, she wasn't afraid to throw down in a fight with a lion and a gay snake, even though the lion was her boss. #lean in. And she had Monstro jugs, but in a maternal sexless way, which is a total ripoff. Like, she doesn't even get to have a plus-sized I can't say it. I can't say it. Okay, this sentence that I wrote in a book says, like, she doesn't even get to have a plus-size fuckfest with Baloo. Sorry, Mom. Okay. And then it says, then there's a footnote that says, I know that this bear's name is technically Little John, but Little John is clearly a character being played by a bear actor named Baloo, who also played himself in the Jungle Book, and decades later, yet seemingly unaged in Tailspin. Okay. Next. Okay. All right. Pipe down. Baloo. Baloo again. More Baloo. Baloo dressed as a sexy fortune teller. Okay. In order to assist Robin Hood in ripping off Prince John's bejeweled decadence caravan, Baloo adorns himself with scarves and rags and golden bangles and whirls around like an impish Scirocco, utterly beguiling PJ's guard rhinos and incapacitating them with boners. Baloo dressed as a sexy fortune teller, this is also, you guys know what I'm talking about? It's fine. Baloo dressed as a sexy fortune teller luxuriates in every curve of his huge, sensuous, bare butt. Self-consciousness is not in his vocabulary. He knows he looks good. The most depressing thing I realized while making this list is that Baloo dressed as a sexy fortune teller is the single most positive role model of my youth. The Queen of Hearts. I do not even know this bitch's deal. Her only personality trait is likes the color red. She doesn't seem to do any governing aside from executing minors from losing at croquet. And she is married to a 1-foot-tall baby with a mustache. She is, now that I think about it, the perfect feminazi caricature. Fat, loud, irrational, violent, overbearing, constantly hitting a hedgehog with a flamingo. Okay, that sexual tree from The Last Unicorn. This is a generational thing that some people don't know what this is, but just go with it, okay? This fine lady was just minding her biz, being a big purple tree, when Schmendrick the garbage sorcerer came along and accidentally witchy-pooed her into a libidinous granny. Then he's all mad when she nearly smothers him between her massive oaken cans. Hey man, if you didn't want to get motorboated to death by a fat tree, you should have picked something thinner and hotter to transform into your girlfriend, like a spaghetti noodle or clarinet. The sex tree that launched 1,000 confusing fetishes taught me that fat women's sexuality isn't just ludicrous, it's also suffocating, disgusting, and squelchy. Okay. You guys are going to get so mad at me for this next one, but we're just going to power through and then move on with our lives. Miss Piggy. Okay. I am deeply torn on Piggy. For a lot of fat women, Piggy is it. She is powerful and uncompromising, assertive in her sexuality, and wholly self-possessed, with an ostentatious glamour usually denied anyone over a size 4. Her being a literal pig affords fat fans the opportunity to reclaim that barb with defiant irony. She invented glorifying obesity. Okay, but also, you guys, Miss Piggy is kind of a rapist. Like, maybe if you love Kermie so much, you should respect his bodily autonomy. The dude is physically running away from you. It makes me really uncomfortable. That is just really honest from the heart, and it was hard to write, and I'm sorry. Every plot line is Kermie running, and it's fine. Don't worry, it's fine. You don't have to agree. You shouldn't chase someone physically to have sex with them. It's a bad sign. Okay, if you have to chase them. Okay. And you know how Kermie runs too? It's like he's like frantic. He's terrified. Okay. Which is also was not a great thing to absorb as a child. Like, oh, this is how men will react to you. Okay, cool. Or frogs, but you know. Okay. Okay, Marla Hooch. A League of Their Own is a classic family comedy that mines the age-old question, what if women could do things? You guys are so cute. Okay. Specifically, the women of A League of Their Own are doing baseball. And Marla Hooch is the most baseball-doingest woman of them all. She can hit homies and run bases and throw the ball far, all while maintaining a positive attitude and dodging jets of Tom Hanks's hot urine. There's just a scene where he pees for a long time. It's fine. It's fine if you guys didn't watch A League of Their Own 400,000 times as a child. The only problem is that she is not max bangable like the other baseball women. She has a jukebox-like body and makes turtle face anytime she is addressed, which, if you think about it, makes her not that good at baseball after all. Fortunately, at the end, she meets a man who is also a jukebox turtle face, and they get married in a condescending ass ceremony that's like, aw, look, the uglies thinks it's people. Presumably they also like each other's personality. What? Doesn't matter? Quarantine the less attractive? Okay. The thing about Marla Hooch is that the actress who plays her is just a totally nice-looking regular woman. I always think of this thing Rachel Dratch said in her memoir, quote, I am offered solely the parts that I like to refer to as the unfuckables. In reality, if you saw me walking down the street, you wouldn't point at me and recoil and throw up and hide behind a shrub. End quote. Hollywood's beauty standards are so wacko that they trick you into thinking that anyone who isn't Gina Davis is literally a toilet. The neighbor with the arm flab from The Adventures of Pete and Pete. Big Pete and Little Pete spent an entire episode fixated on the jiggling of an elderly neighbor's arm fat. Next, I didn't wear a tank top for 20 years. Ursula the Sea Witch. The whole thing with Ariel's voice and Prince Ambien overdose is just an act of civil disobedience. What Ursula really wants is to bring down the regime of King Triton so she and her eel bros don't have to live in a dank hole tending their garden of misery slime for the rest of their lives. It's the same thing with the Lion King. Why should the hyenas have a shitty life? History is written by the victors, so forgive me if I don't trust some P90X Sea King's smear campaign against the radical fatty in the next grotto. Okay, let's just go all the way through. Morla, the aged one from the Neverending Story, a depressed turtle who's so fat and dirty people literally get her confused with a mountain. Auntie Shrew. I guess it's forgivable that one of the secondary antagonists of The Secret of Nim is a shrieking shrew of a woman who is also a literal shrew named Auntie Shrew, because the hero of the movie is also a lady, and she is strong and brave. But like, seriously, Auntie Shrew? Thanks for giving her a pinwheel of snaggle fangs to go with the cornucopia of misogynist stereotypes she calls a personality. Mrs. Potts. Question. How come, when they turn back into humans at the end of Beauty and the Beast, Chip is a 4-year-old boy, but his mother, Mrs. Potts, is like 107? Perhaps you're thinking, Lindy, you are remembering it wrong. That kindly white-haired, snowman-shaped Mrs. Doubtfire situation must be Chip's grandmother. Not so, champ. She's his mom. Look it up. She gave birth to him 4 years ago. Also, where is Chip's dad? Could you imagine being a 103-year-old single mom? As soon as you become a mother, apparently, you are instantly interchangeable with the oldest woman in the world. And or 16 ounces of boiling brown water with a hat on it. Take a sec and contrast Mrs. Potts's literally spherical body with the cut diamond abs of King Triton, father of 7. The Trunchbull from Matilda. Okay, sure. The Trunchbull is a bitter, intractable, sadistic she-monster who doesn't even feel a shred of fat solidarity with Bruce Bogtrotter. Seriously, Trunch? But can you imagine being the Trunchbull and growing up with Miss effing Honey? The world is not kind to big, ugly women. Sometimes bitterness is the only defense. And that's it. Taken in aggregate, here's what I learned in my childhood about my personal and professional potential. I could not claim any sexual agency unless I forced myself upon a genteel frog, or unless, as part of a jewel caper, I was trying to seduce a base, horny fool such as a working-class rhinoceros. And if I insisted on broadcasting my sexuality anyway, I would be exiled to a sea cave to live eternally in a dank garden of worms, hoping that a gullible hot chick might come along once in a while so I could grift her out of her sexy voice, even though my voice was already better. Even in those rare scenarios, my sexuality would still be a joke, an oddity, or a menace. I could potentially find chaste comical romance, provided I located a chubby simpleton who looked suspiciously like myself without a hair bow, and the rest of humanity would breathe a secret sigh of relief that the two of us were removing ourselves from the broader gene pool. Or I could succumb to the lifetime of grinding pain and resentment and transform into a hideous beast who makes herself feel better by locking helpless children in the knife closet. Mother or monster? Okay, little girl, choose. That's that chapter. Thank you. You guys are nice. I feel like I could just read to you forever, but I can't. That would be weird. But that's the first chapter of the book, and then the book continues, and you should read it. So I think now let's just do some questions, right? Does everyone feel cool about that? I think we're gonna have microphones if you guys want to line up. If you have a question, right? Does someone who knows the answer gonna say? I see we have a microphone here and a microphone there. So if you form two lines, that would be cool. And don't be shy, it's fine. We can talk about whatever. I mean, don't be a jerk, but.
Well, now you're setting the bar kind of
hi.
high. Hi. So I had a question. You had some great examples from my childhood as well. But I also read a lot of modern media, comic books, pretty much my jam. Do you have any examples you think of, strong women that are doing it well these days that you enjoy?
Oh man, I should have prepared an answer to that question, knowing that it would be asked. I mean, I was really talking about children's media, and I don't consume a lot of children's media, but I believe that it is better now. But I mean, we have fat women movie stars now. We have Melissa McCarthy, who I personally love a lot. I have no problem with her. I don't know if people do. Do people have a problem with her? Anyone? No. She's great. Rebel Wilson sometimes I don't like because she does things like play sad fat character where all the jokes are that she's fat, which I don't like quite so much. I don't know, do you have suggestions for fat female characters that people should look out for? My Mad Fat Diary, that's amazing. Have you guys watched that? It's a web series. Is it a web series or is it on TV in the UK?
Web series.
Oh, okay, BBC. It's on Hulu right now. Everyone should watch it. It's really, really good. But yeah, I mean, it feels like, what I'm looking for is not just more fat people on TV. It's fat people presented as human beings, and not just punchlines, and not just people with tragic fat lady storylines. And so, it definitely feels like, the fight for representation across the board is just a constant struggle. I mean, I don't know why people hate. It's weird because the people who are represented in media are always like, why are you complaining so much? Representation doesn't even matter. And it's like, okay, well, if it doesn't matter, then why don't you fucking let go of it a little bit and let some other people be in the media, white guys. No offense, but. So, was that a good answer?
Yes.
I don't know why I'm asking. I mean, that's, I'm sure that there are other, I mean, did I miss anyone? There's now that fat lady comic book. What's her name? Do you know? Faith. Yeah, I haven't read it yet, but that's rad.
Yes, Steven Universe.
Steven Universe, yeah, that's a good one, totally.
And then also the comic book Love and Rockets is also a lot of.
I don't know about that, but it sounds.
It's rad.
Love and Rockets, everyone, if you want some fat lady. Is it women or is it?
Women, all sizes.
That's cool. Yeah. All right. It's like there's always a long way to go, but it feels like progress is lurching forward a little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll go back and forth. Yes. Hi.
Hi. Okay, so I have a coworker who doesn't believe that fat shaming is real, and. So I was wondering how you would suggest that I would go about educating him in a way that's not just going to completely shut him down and make him defensive.
I mean, it's weird because, like, what do you, like, I don't understand how people try to say that things that are real aren't real. Like, I don't know what, but I don't know. I mean, he thinks that people aren't mean to fat people. Because, like, it's like a national pastime to be mean to fat people. I don't, like, has he experienced the media or, like, going outside?
Yeah, you know.
Oh, he should do one of those things like when Tyra Banks wore that fat suit and went and walked around, and then she came back to the studio, and then all the actual fat ladies comforted Tyra because she had such a sad, hard time being fat. Greatest moment of television ever. No, I mean, I don't know. It's hard when people just have a block and they're not interested. That sounds to me like he's not interested in hearing it, you know? And what do? I mean, oh, I know, he should read my book. No, I mean, but he's not going to do that either. I don't know, do you guys, I feel like I keep throwing it back at you guys. I mean, how do you communicate with people who don't want to be communicated with? It's just a long, slow process, I guess. And it probably helps, and I'm not good at this, but it probably helps to not be confrontational and to be, like, kind and patient and understanding if this is someone that it's important to you to get through to. And otherwise, you know, if this is someone that is your friend and who likes being around you and you really do want to get through to them, the greatest leverage is the pleasure of your company. And if he doesn't feel like listening and doesn't want to hear you, then you don't hang out with him anymore until he does, you know? Was that helpful?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. If anyone has a better idea, you could find this nice lady and it's just hard, you know? I mean, that's why, I've been writing the same article over and over for like 5 years because people don't want to hear it. So clearly I don't have the answer, but I'm trying. Yes, hi.
Hi. So you mentioned in your book being a big fan of high fantasy. I was recently at an event where a male fantasy author told of his experience writing a book with a teenage female protagonist, and the first people he took it to, the first publishers, they told him that they would take the book if they changed the teenage girl to a boy. Because the reason given was that girls will read about boys, but boys won't read about girls. So he didn't do this. He kept his female protagonist,
Aww.
which was nice, and I think it's a pretty big hit and everything. But my basic question is, do you think it's still true that in general, women will read about men, but men won't read about women?
Is that true? I don't know. Because, my reaction to that is, okay, so he still put the book out, and did no one read it? Did only girls read it? That just seems unlikely to me. Although I certainly see that attitude online. There are plenty of vocal fans of many genres of art and media who, there was just I don't know if it was a study or just a sort of, non-scientific survey that happened recently where there was some video game that made it so you had to play a girl character, and dudes were like, no, it's torture, that's garbage, help me, 911. So, but I try to have faith in human beings that's just a vocal minority and not the bulk of young men, you know? But sure. Like I said in my rambling intro, women's stories are niche and men's stories are universal. That's how we treat them. So, that doesn't surprise me that response, that he got that response. But I hope that people will just continue pushing back against that and, not caving to it and publishing your book anyway. And if it's a good story and a good book, God, hopefully, and raise your young baby sons to read books about girls. So it doesn't feel weird. That's really discouraging, but hopefully it's on the way out. I don't know. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, hi.
Hi, Lindy. So first of all, I just want to take a minute to say thank you, because I think that the work that you've been doing, not just with this book, but for years now, is really important to our culture. And I love you.
Thank you. That's so nice.
And this isn't substantive to the first chapter that you read, but it is, I think, to the narrative that you've been running for a while. One of the things that I think is really hard about what you're doing is that by bringing up things that people don't even like to admit are true, for instance, you're the target of a lot of really mean, asshole-ish comments, personal attacks all the time. And it's kind of two things. First of all, what do you do to clean that shit off so you can keep being you? And what can the rest of us do to like help pick up this work and make it not so hard to be so vocal in public and to be moving the ball on this?
I thank you, first of all. That's so sweet. I'm starting to feel like maybe the bad parts of the internet are irredeemable and we should abandon them. So, I used to be like, talk back on Twitter, and now I'm kind of like, what if we burned Twitter? Personally, what I do is spend time in a physical space with my family and friends, and I'm really really lucky to have an amazing support system and amazing friends and a wonderful husband and wonderful children and wonderful family, and that's really helpful because when you are caught up in one of these internet garbage storms, it can start to feel like that's the whole universe, and you can feel your head like floating away into space. And so I've really learned a lot over the last couple of years of what it means to have people who help you stay grounded, because that feels very literal to me. Like, okay, there are people that I go to and I can spend time with who remind me that this is the real world, and most people are good, and there are people all over the place doing incredible work, and I'm not the person that people who hate me on the internet say I am, because why would I trust those people's opinion anyway? And in terms of the rest of you, I just think it's really important to keep doing your work and to not get I've been lately thinking less about how to combat online harassment and hate and more about how to just keep myself on track and doing my own work and making things and connecting with people and building things that are positive and make the world better, rather than this totally fruitless, endless fight against these people who have no interest in leaving me alone. I'm not going to convince them to leave me alone, and the problem is not a technology problem. It's a culture problem. It's not that Twitter exists. It's that misogyny exists. So whatever you can do to fight those forces, racism, misogyny, transphobia in your own life, with the people around you, and to just keep living your life, I think is hugely important. And I had another thing I was going to say, which was, oh yeah, like if you run a media company, maybe some of you here do, really into the trend of no comments. No comments sections on articles is a cool plan, because I've had there are a handful of lovely people who say lovely things, but then I don't know that it's a net gain when those are drowned out by thousands of just exploding toilets. So no comment section rules. And also, I think it's cool, if there are writers that you like, reach out to them and tell them that they're doing a good job and be nice to them. Because sometimes all you hear is hate all day, every day, and it's exhausting. And, hate in retaliation for this work that you, pour yourself into every day, because it's a job and it's hard and it's exhausting, and it's really draining to do, to write something really vulnerable, and then which is already in it inherently draining, and then get nothing back but shit and poison. So yeah, those are. I don't have a great solution. If I had a great solution, I would sell it and make $1 billion. But the solution is to fix the culture, which is a very, very long, slow process of communication and chipping away and setting really firm boundaries and defending them. Hi.
Hi. I had a question based on how old were you when you started writing, and what kept you on that train, and how do you keep inspired with the media storm and everybody's opinions, like growing up? How do you maintain the passion, I guess?
Yeah, I started writing when I was really little. When I was little, I wrote all the time. I wrote stories and books, and I had a million ideas. And then I sort of, you get kind of, as you get older, people tell you things about yourself. And, that starts to feel like not like somewhere along the way I lost the certainty that I could do that as a job. And then I went to college and I got an English degree, and I was like, I like reading books, but I don't know how to write books. That is a thing for like cool people with ideas and skills. And but then after I graduated, I just didn't have any other skills except for being able to make sentences. So I sort of weirdly fell back into it, and was kind of fell back into it because I was just drawn by the culture of The Stranger. Like, I was like, those seem like really cool people that I want to hang out with. Maybe I could fake my way through this internship, and then they would like me, and then they would be my friends, and then they would give me like a pity job. But it turned out that I was actually good at it, and I just sort of kept moving up, like just following the path as it opened up before me without any kind of a plan. And then it was not until probably maybe 5 years ago that I really started thinking of myself as a writer and thinking of this with certainty as something that I was good at. And from there, I feel very privileged to have, like I said earlier, a really great foundation in my life, and people who are supportive and smart and cool and kind, and so it's not hard. I feel kind of like I feel like slightly fraudulent when people are like, how do you maintain your optimism? Because it's easy, because I am surrounded by such great people, and it's also easy once I transition from just being a critic and writing about movies and theater and TV to writing more political and personal things. Then you start to hear from people. You just start to hear from your readers who say things like, I needed this, and this helped me, and that's the most gratifying thing. And at that point, it's hard to imagine stopping, because if you stop, then there are people who need you. Even if it's just 5 people, 10 people, that's worth it to me. So, yeah, it's. I don't know quite how to answer it, because it feels easy to me to keep going.
Well, thank you, and
Thank
please
you.
keep going.
Thank you. Hi.
So I know that this year has been totally crazy, and you've already addressed like a little bit of the sort of like deluge of just garbage opinions that people send your way a lot. But is there an interaction or a moment that was your favorite, that was totally positive from this, year or so of time that really sticks out for you?
I mean, just the reaction to the book has been totally life-changing. I didn't know what, I really, in a very genuine, honest way, didn't have a gauge of how people would react to it and how people would feel about it. And I've just heard from so many people who have said that they never felt seen before, and that's just such an important thing to say. And I mean, yeah, definitely, this moment's really scary because everyone's reading my book, and it's scary. But like I said, I mean, if 5 people have that reaction, then I'm so glad to have done it. So yeah, I guess right now is the coolest time because the part before right now was really hard and long, and now I get to just travel around and meet people and and people cry and are so cute, and it's just like the best. So yeah, this is it right now. This exact moment is the best. Hi.
Hi. I'm trying to write a play right now, and I'm wondering how you get the ball of ideas in your mind onto a piece of paper without sounding totally insane.
I don't really feel like I know how to do that. I mean, if you want to know about my actual writing process, it's real weird. First, I sit perfectly still for like 12 to 15 hours and can't do anything and fail. And I'm like, this is never gonna exist. I've been doing, for the entirety of my writing career, this has been my process. I'm just, every single time I'm convinced that this piece of writing will never exist. And this is the one where I failed and now I'm fired forever. And then there's like sometimes a small amount of crying. And then I get my husband to come over by me and I say, okay, here's what I'm writing about. This is what it's supposed to be about. Read this article. And then I force him to do all of the research on the topic. And then I just yell sentences at him, and some of the sentences are good, and then I write them down. It's a horrible process. And then usually I get enough good stuff that then I can sort of turn it into an outline and then fill in the blanks. Or but the other weird thing that I do is, if you just push through that wall and just start writing things down, you can always edit them later. That's the thing. So I also do a weird thing where most of the things that I write are like from start to finish. Like I just start with the first word and go through the end. Rather than like writing individual paragraphs and like doing drafts and figuring out where things fit, I just do this sort of like barfing of things. If I don't do the husband thing, I just do this like, I don't know. So, which feels like, okay, this is weird. But I described it the other day, the feeling of, I guess, what you would call creativity. It's like a magic eye poster where it's like after I do the 10 hours of agony and nothingness, then it's like you sort of go into this trance, and then I'm like, and then it comes out. That's not helpful. I would just say the most important things that I've learned in my career are to stay really true to my voice, and because that's what makes me a valuable commodity. Like that's what makes me a person that people want to listen to, because I'm not other people, I'm me. And you have to just take chances and be vulnerable and write stuff that you're not sure about. I mean, there are still sentences in this book where I look at them and I'm like, is that a good sentence? Is that the best sentence I've ever written, or the worst sentence anyone's ever written? And I'm not sure, but you kind of just have to take some leaps of faith and just, when it's just you and the page, just write down whatever, and then later go through and cut the stuff you hate and add better stuff. Was that the worst answer? I'm so sorry.
It's good to know someone else feels how I do.
Yeah, it's kind of this, I think that the way that writing is presented, the mythology of being a writer is very lovely and involves like mason jars of flowers you picked from the garden. And the reality is like me in my underwear at 5 a.m. eating Swedish fish and crying. So like, don't be sad. Don't be scared if that's your process, because it's, as far as I know, totally normal. Hi.
Hi, it's Kaylee from Town Hall. I just have a quick announcement. We should have time for everybody that's currently standing in line before we move to book signing. Thanks.
All right. This is so fun, you guys. Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm a huge fan. I have been forever. You're my literal hero.
Thanks.
So the other day, I was in a preschool classroom, and they were listening to the Three Billy Goats Gruff on the audiobook, and the teacher paused at a certain point because I guess they called one of the billy goats fat, or maybe it was the troll, I don't know. Oh. And I wasn't listening.
Probably the troll.
And she paused it and said, now, it's okay to read fat if it's in a book, but it is not okay to ever say the word fat or call anyone fat. And I had just read your book, and I thought, So I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about, if you could solve this problem right now, and talk a little bit about how do we remove that shame, and how do we normalize fatness and remove the shame and the stigma? I know you touched on it a little bit in your book, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? Because on the one hand, that seems kind of good, like teach little kids that that's not a thing that we use as a weapon.
It's not an insult.
Right.
Right, but we never say it.
Yeah, well, it's just, my worry is that some of those kids are going to be fat, and then they learned in preschool that that's a horrible thing to be that you should never talk about.
Right.
So, I mean, like it's hard because that's such better messaging than you often hear about. Like, you know, you hear about kids being like lined up and weighed in front of their peers and then sent home with letters saying you're too fat. And like the idea that, or when, like we just talked about, like when I was a kid, it was totally normal to be like, to just have fat be code for a bad, mean, evil troll. So, it's a tough line. But I just think that there's room to teach kids that it's just a descriptor, and that you can separate what your body looks like from it's important to teach kids to like move their bodies and run around and eat nutritious foods, and you can do that without linking that to body size and body shape at all. But I don't know how to get that into preschool curriculums. but I mean, I mean, as you know, if you've read the book, I really think that it's just a descriptor, and I don't think that it has aesthetic connotations, and I certainly don't think it should have the moral connotations that it does. So at least preschool teachers are getting to that point. But yeah, I don't have a solution, I guess. That's unsatisfying. What do you think?
I thought that I would solve it by just asking you about it.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, I think your instinct is right. I think not talking about it just makes it bigger and scarier. And what I think would be really helpful for little kids would be to just teach them that everyone's body is their body, and it's okay to have a body, and all bodies are different.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. So I am a writer as much as I'm sure many people in this room are a writer, and I'm currently working on a memoir mostly about my family, and it's been really hard for me. I'm in a writing group and we read each other's stuff. It's getting really personal, and I'm wondering, I read your book, it's super personal. You go into a lot of detail about a lot of stuff, and I'm wondering if there was a line you had to draw or anything that was totally off limits for like public consumption.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I think people think of me as like an oversharer, and it's like, you guys, like I keep a lot, well, I don't mean that I have like horrible secrets, but there's a million lines, and there's a lot of myself that I keep private, because you just have to hang on to a part of yourself, and you can't just completely give yourself over for public consumption, because it's exhausting. So yeah, I mean, I obviously, like, it would defeat the purpose for me to list the things that I don't write about, but there's plenty I don't write about. I don't know. I just think, I guess I could say that I feel like there's a writing economy right now that really encourages, especially young women, to sell their deepest traumas for $50, and I would encourage people to not do that, unless you really want, feel comfortable. But I just think that, I shouldn't have said that. I don't know. I think, like I already said, I don't know if I have any great wisdom here, but it is really important to me at least, to keep a part of myself just for me and the people around me, because it's really scary to write something really personal and send it out. I mean, even this is the farthest boundary that I can imagine going to. I don't write about my relationship usually. There's just things that are mine. And if I give those away, then it gets scary. So I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say, and what I meant with the whole $50 thing, is if something feels off to you and it's setting alarm bells off for you, you don't have to push through that. Like, you can listen to those instincts, and you don't have to give everything away to be a good writer, or to be a good confessional writer or a good personal essay writer. Like, writing is a craft, and you're choosing exactly what you want to say and what you don't want to say. So follow your instincts.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hi.
Hey, Lindy, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm really nervous.
Why?
Yeah.
We're just hanging out.
I know. Okay, so I have a question, but before I ask my question, I want to see a show of hands of how many guys are here tonight.
That's a lot. Good job,
is
guys.
that a lot? Right. I mean, compared to the number of ladies here tonight, women here tonight, right? Like, I mean, okay. So my question, if you'll permit me, it's a question for you to comment on, and then also like a question for the guys here tonight, because one of the earlier questions was sort of like by a woman asking, how does she change the mind of some guy who doesn't want to acknowledge fat shaming? And one of the things I see is like white men who don't want to acknowledge, that we live in a patriarchal society, or like that racial inequality or systematic racism still exists, right? But the thing is what I've noticed is that these guys are a lot more apt to listen to other white men with the same privileges that they have, right? And so I would ask, like, of the men here tonight, obviously, like, huge fans of Lindy, who making the world better. Like, what are we actively doing to change the world and to make the world a better place? Which is what you're doing.
Thanks.
So, I guess, and I feel like you carry a huge burden of like saying that thing that people don't necessarily want to hear, right? And it shouldn't be all your burden, right? And that as like people with privilege, like it's our responsibility to like take some of that burden away and like you're a wonderful beacon and like a guide. I'm like, okay, Lindy said this, I can go with that, like, so that's a little bit of question for the guys out there, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's my responsibility to talk to other white people about white privilege and racism. I think that men can do a tremendous amount of good communicating with other men, if even just to alert other men to the fact that, like, there's this veneer of male authority that people really respect, even if they aren't aware that they're doing it, and to even just point out that that's not a real thing, and that women are just as credible as men. That's a hugely helpful conversation that I think men can have with each other. And yeah, I'm tired. Like I said, I've written the same article 4 million times about all these different issues. And so, yeah, any kind of lifting you guys want to do, not to fall back into gendered roles, gendered stereotypes, but figurative lifting and literal lifting if you want to. My mom always needs furniture moved if you guys, but yeah, I mean, I thank you for saying that, and it is really important for men to have these conversations among themselves, I think, because that's the name of the book, right? Like, when women talk and when women complain, it's coded as shrill and unreasonable, and we use women's tone to diminish women's credibility, and that's, of course, absurd. So yeah, use your big, deep voice.
I will.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, no, and thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindy.
Hi.
Hi. I'm a little shorter. I guess he kind of touched on a little bit of my question, but I was curious, I guess, like, for maybe the women in the room or the men who don't have a platform like writing for the stranger or having an opportunity to publish a book or just being able to have the ability to speak to this group. Like, what is your hope for us to take away and then maybe do in the world to like do to maybe make this better or address some of these issues?
I mean, it's hard for me to talk about this without feeling really grandiose, like, oh, go out into the world and fix oppression. But I really do, I mean, in my own personal experience, a huge number of the people who come at me in really aggressive, hateful ways, they seem to be people who really hate themselves and who are really insecure and really unhappy. And I think that if we can start to chip away at some of these expectations that make people unhappy, that force people into these boxes that chafe or that, you know, tell people horrible things about themselves every day of their lives, that can really make a huge difference. You know, if you can teach people to be kinder to themselves, I think that naturally they will be kinder to other people. So I guess those are and that sounds so like Hallmark cardy, but I mean, I really do want people to be kinder to themselves and kinder to the people around them. And I have no idea if that's something that, you know, the 1,200 people in this room can change on a global scale, but we can at least start. And yeah, I mean, and you know, it's hard. I'm really hesitant about all this stuff because I don't want anyone to think that I am of the opinion that me writing a grumpy tweet, like a sassy tweet about abortion, is the same as someone who's risking their life to be an abortion care provider. You know what I mean? Like, there's this spectrum where some people are really on the ground, like, doing shit. But if I also think that the first step to changing people's actions is changing their minds, and so if we can all communicate with each other and, like I said, set boundaries and defend boundaries and support people who are putting themselves at real physical risk to make the world better, you know, there's a lot of us in here. I feel like we can, like, lurch forward a little bit, right? But yeah, I don't know. Just thank you all for even coming here. It feels really encouraging and cool. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Do you have any ideas?
No, it's
all right, I'll stop doing that, throwing it back at you guys and being like, you answer the question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, Lindy.
I like your dress.
I was just going to start off by saying the same thing to you.
Oh my God.
The dress is beautiful.
Look at us go.
My question, I'm the mom of 2 daughters, and I know you are as well. It's related a little bit to the preschool question that came up earlier. The language that I and the other parents I know have used around our children is all bodies are good, they come in all sizes, big, tall, short, fat. That's a lot of the language we've used, but my daughters are now 8 and 6. They've known since kindergarten, despite our best efforts, that fat is bad. It's a pejorative they use when they're play fighting. I hear it around the playground. And I also know the world they're coming into and how, as young women, they are going to be judged and perceived because of their bodies. And so I feel like I'm struggling as a parent for what's the more grown-up language to move into, because the all bodies are good is starting to sound really hollow.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice?
Yeah, I mean, that does start to feel, you can tell that feels meaningless to them once they're in, like, middle school. It's like, okay, fine, but like, 20 horrible mean girls called me fat today. Yeah, I mean, so I totally know exactly what you mean. I hear the same things from my stepdaughters.
You're like the next step.
Yeah.
You're like the next age group up.
Oh, get ready. It's pretty cool. Middle school is great. It's just a warm, nest of kindness and empathy. I mean, so I don't know. It's hard because I don't feel like the way that we talk to our kids is like, they will come home and be like, oh, this girl said I was fat today. And I'll be like, well, she sounds like a real bitch. Like, we tend to kind of talk to them like they're adults, which I think is helpful in some ways. Like, I try to model, like, I don't say she sounds like a real bitch. I say, like, yeah, well, she sounds like a jerk who probably is having a hard time. You know what I mean? A thing that I say all the time is, like, mean things that people say to you are really things that they're saying to themselves, that they're thinking about themselves all the time. But I try to model for them, how I move through the world, which is using words for what they mean and making sure that they see me grapple with people calling me fat all the time, and like that just being an accurate descriptor, because that if someone tries to say something accurate about you as an insult, it doesn't make sense. But yeah, I do this thing that my mom did when I was a kid that I hated, where she would, if someone was mean to me at school, every time she would say, well, they probably have a hard life. And I would be like, Mom, why can't you just take my side? But now that I hear these things that other girls say at school, it's like, yeah, man, that girl's having a hard time. And I'm just really candid with them that we're all taught these expectations for ourselves and our bodies, and that every girl at your school is swimming around in the same septic tank as you. and it's just really important to remember who you are. And it's hard though. I also don't know how much of that's getting through. Like I hope that in the long run they'll remember me and how a hugely important thing for parents, for moms especially, is to not say negative things about your own body in front of your kids. Because that all gets absorbed. But yeah, I try to talk to them candidly the way that I talk to my friends. Because I know they can process it. They're really smart, and they're really and I can feel them teetering in this moment where it's like, which direction are they going to go? And so I really want to model that for them and let them know that, also, I also say, like, because I think this, like, they're not fat. They're like string beans. And I'm like, do you see how this is a meaningless thing? Like, this is just someone trying to hurt you with a thing that doesn't, like, it's people coming up to you and telling you that you're blonde when you clearly have brown hair. It just doesn't make sense. So yeah, it's a constant struggle, and I don't know. I just find that what makes me feel okay is to really hold that line and make sure I'm being candid and honest, and letting them know that it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to be nice to kids that are mean to you. Like, I don't want you to be a jerk, but you don't have to be friends with people who make you feel like shit. You don't have to be friends with people who diminish you, because that happens. With these girls at school all the time. Like, they're just like, girls just hurt each other for fun, and boys. The boys are worse, but I can't even deal with that. Middle school, man, it's terrifying. But yeah, was that an answer? I feel like I should have ended stronger because that was our last question. Okay, hold on. Let me find some sort of wisdom nugget.
We could talk about raising good kids is part of the 1,200 person mission, right?
Yeah.
Bring it all back.
To bring it back to that, like, treat yourself well in front of your kids and be kind to yourself. And that teaches your kids how to treat each other, I think, hopefully.
Thank you.
All right, so that's our show, ladies and gentlemen. I can't thank you enough for coming out for this. I'm like just really barely holding it together and not just sobbing because this is so moving and beautiful, and all of you are so wonderful. And come say hi to me. We're gonna sign books in the lobby for probably like 4 hours. And it's gonna be fun, and I love you all so much. Thank you so much for coming. Okay. All right, have a great night. Come see me in the lobby. I love you.